My name is Liz, I'm 38, and 10 years ago, my own sister stole my wealthy fiancé. Before I tell you about how she saw my husband and her face turned pale, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. It all happened at the Tech Innovators Summit, a place buzzing with the brightest minds in the industry. I was there, feeling a quiet confidence in my tailored suit, ready to network and share my company's latest breakthroughs. I'd built this from nothing, you know? Every fiber of my being was screaming with pride, but also a deep sense of calm. Then, across the room, I saw them. Emma and Michael. They were like a perfectly curated picture, surrounded by a small entourage of sycophants, all smiles and designer clothes. Michael, still as charming as ever, spotted me first. He detached himself from Emma, a smirk playing on his lips as he approached. "Liz. Long time no see," he said, his voice dripping with feigned surprise. "It's quite a shock to see you here. Must have pulled some strings to get an invitation, huh?" He paused, letting his gaze sweep over me, then added, "Still single, though, right? I suppose it's easier to focus on work when you don't have the distractions of family life." Emma sidled up beside him, her arm linked through his, a smug smile plastered on her face. "That's right, sis. Look at my husband, successful, brilliant, and so devoted to his family. Well." Her voice trailed off, but the implication hung heavy in the air. I just smiled calmly, my eyes locking with hers. "Thanks for your concern, Emma. And speaking of husbands, you should meet mine." I glanced towards the main entrance, a quiet anticipation building inside me. Who is this husband I spoke of? Would he truly be able to shatter their carefully constructed facade? You know, looking at them, it was like a twisted echo of my childhood. Emma, always the golden child, the angel in my parents' eyes. I was the older sister, the responsible one, always giving way, always taking care of her. I remember when I won the district science fair in middle school. I was so proud. I came home, clutching my ribbon, ready to share the news. But my parents barely glanced at it. "That's nice, dear," my mom said, already turning her attention to Emma, who was showing off a new dance move. "Look at Emma, isn't she graceful? She's going to be a star." It was always like that. My achievements were just expected. Emma's slightest whim was celebrated. If I got an A, it was because I was smart. If Emma got a B, it was because she was creative and didn't care about silly grades. The unspoken message was always clear: Emma was special, and I was just there. When we went to college, I worked 2 jobs to pay my tuition and living expenses. I took out student loans, balancing classes with waitressing shifts and tutoring gigs. Emma, on the other hand, had everything handed to her. My parents paid for her tuition at a prestigious art school, her trendy apartment downtown, even her extravagant shopping sprees. There was this one time Emma got into serious credit card debt, purely from impulse buys, designer bags and weekend trips. My parents, instead of making her face the consequences, just looked at me. "Liz, can you help your sister out? She's in a bit of a bind. She just needs a little boost to get back on her feet." I drained my modest savings, money I'd earmarked for a down payment on a tiny apartment, just to bail her out. She barely said thank you, just a quick hug and a promise to pay me back someday, a promise that, of course, never materialized. It felt like a constant drain, a never-ending sacrifice for someone who never appreciated it, someone who consistently took without giving. My own dreams were always put on hold for hers. Then Michael came into my life. He was ambitious, charming, from a wealthy family. He was everything Emma had always openly coveted, everything she'd hinted she deserved. I thought he was different. I thought he saw me, not just my family connections or my willingness to sacrifice. He seemed to appreciate my drive, my quiet determination. When he proposed, I was over the moon. The diamond sparkled on my finger, a promise of a future I'd always dreamed of. Emma, of course, was the first person I told. She hugged me, cried happy tears, and offered to help with wedding plans. "Oh, Liz, I'm so happy for you. Michael is such a catch. We'll plan the most beautiful wedding." Her words were sweet, but there was a glint in her eyes, a subtle shift in her demeanor that I, blinded by happiness, completely missed. My best friend, Sarah, saw it though. Sarah, who had been by my side through every unfair slight, every parental dismissal, every one of Emma's selfish demands. She'd always been my rock. "Liz," she'd said, her brow furrowed, "are you sure about Michael? He seems a little too smooth. And Emma, she seems a little too excited about your wedding." I brushed her off, convinced she was just being overly protective. I was so wrong. I wish I had listened. The storm began on a cold evening, exactly 10 years ago. I came home early from a late meeting, planning to surprise Michael with dinner. I'd picked up his favorite Italian, a bottle of expensive Chianti. As I walked into the living room, the scene froze me to the spot. Michael and Emma were locked in an embrace on my couch, the one I'd painstakingly saved for. His hand was tangled in her hair, her arms wrapped around his neck. My blood ran cold. The dinner bag slipped from my numb fingers, hitting the floor with a dull thud. The sound shattered the silence, and they sprang apart, startled. Michael looked like a deer caught in headlights, his face pale with shock. But Emma was calm. Too calm. "Liz." "I can explain," Michael stammered, his voice barely a whisper. But Emma cut him off, her voice unnervingly steady, almost triumphant. "No, Michael. Let me. Liz, I think I love him. We've been seeing each other for a while now. It wasn't planned, but it just happened." She looked at me, not with remorse, but with a strange, almost pitying expression. "I'm sorry if this hurts you, but love can't be forced, can it?" My world shattered. The woman I'd supported, loved, sacrificed for, had just stabbed me in the back. And Michael, my fiancé, the man who had promised me forever, stood there, silent, offering no explanation, no apology, no shred of remorse. He just stood there, letting her speak for him. I felt a hot flash crawl up my neck, my vision blurring at the edges. My hands trembled, clenched into fists. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. The pain was too deep for tears. I just stared at them, the betrayal a bitter taste in my mouth, metallic and acrid. I ripped the diamond ring from my finger, the symbol of a broken promise, and threw it at Michael's feet. "Get out," I choked out, my voice raw. "Both of you. Get out of my life." Michael never reached out. Not once. He vanished, just like the love I thought we shared. Just weeks later, the ultimate public humiliation. Emma and Michael announced their engagement. They didn't even wait. Then came the lavish wedding, plastered all over social media, a grotesque display of their true love. Every picture, every smiling face, every caption about their destiny was a punch to the gut. They flaunted their expensive new home, their luxury cars, their exotic vacations. My parents, instead of comforting me, lectured me. "Liz, Emma's just a child. You need to understand her. She didn't mean to hurt you. Michael is a good man, and if he chose Emma, you have to accept it. Don't ruin their happiness by being so dramatic." Their words twisted the knife deeper, confirming that I was truly alone. I was cast aside, not just by my fiancé and sister, but by my own parents. It felt like I was erased from their lives, a forgotten chapter. But that pain, that deep, searing betrayal, became my fuel. I cut off all contact. No calls, no texts, no social media. It was a brutal decision, tearing a hole in my heart, but a necessary one. I moved to a new city, a blank slate, and buried myself in work, channeling every ounce of my hurt, my anger, my humiliation into ambition. My tiny, rented office became my sanctuary, my battleground. I worked tirelessly, sometimes sleeping under my desk, fueled by instant coffee and sheer stubbornness. I wasn't just building a company, I was building a new life, brick by painful brick, a fortress against the past. And as I built, I also started a quiet, methodical plan. I used my keen research skills, honed over years of problem-solving and meticulous analysis, to discreetly gather information on Michael's company. I looked for any signs of shady dealings, risky investments, any vulnerabilities. I tracked his public records, his business filings, even subtle shifts in market sentiment around his ventures. I wasn't seeking immediate revenge, I was cultivating a long-term strategy, waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect leverage. I knew, deep down, that this was just the beginning. The worst was yet to come for them, not for me. 10 years flew by, a blur of late nights, early mornings, and relentless determination. My company, once a tiny startup operating out of that cramped, rented office, had blossomed into a formidable tech enterprise, a recognized leader in applied AI solutions. We weren't just making software, we were revolutionizing industries, creating platforms that streamlined operations and boosted efficiency for Fortune 500 companies. I was no longer just Liz, I was Elizabeth Gray, CEO, a respected name in the industry, often featured in Forbes and Fortune, invited to exclusive roundtables and industry panels. But through it all, I kept my personal life fiercely private. The scars of the past were still there, quiet reminders of the lessons learned, but they had faded into quiet reminders, not open wounds. The pain was no longer a raw wound, but a hardened resolve. During those years, I met James. He wasn't just a man, he was a legend in the tech world, a titan who had built and sold multiple billion-dollar companies. Our connection wasn't a whirlwind romance, though there was an undeniable spark. It was a slow, steady burn of mutual respect, intellectual camaraderie, and deep understanding. He saw my drive, my resilience, my quiet strength, and he appreciated it without needing to control it. We married quietly, a private ceremony far from the prying eyes of the media. James was everything Michael wasn't, genuine, humble, and utterly uninterested in superficial displays of wealth or public validation. He valued integrity, authenticity, and quiet strength. With him, I felt safe, cherished, truly loved for the first time in my life. He was my anchor, my quiet strength, and my unwavering support. He never pushed, only encouraged. He understood my past without needing to dwell on it, and he celebrated my present and future. Our bond was built on trust, a foundation that had been so brutally shattered before. Sarah, bless her heart, still kept me updated on Emma and Michael through mutual acquaintances. The glossy facade they presented was crumbling. Michael's investments were consistently failing, and rumors of financial impropriety swirled around his company. His once promising career was stagnating, overshadowed by a series of bad decisions. Emma, despite her continued public displays of luxury on social media, was reportedly under immense pressure to maintain appearances, constantly worried about their shrinking bank accounts and the mounting debt. They were struggling, trying desperately to keep up with a lifestyle they couldn't afford, a lifestyle built on stolen dreams and borrowed time. I listened, but I didn't comment. I knew my time was coming. The seeds of their own destruction had been sown long ago. When the invitation to the Tech Innovators Summit arrived, I knew it was the perfect stage. It was the most exclusive event of the year, a gathering of true power players. I had a feeling Emma and Michael, desperate to cling to whatever remnants of prestige they had left, would be there. I looked at James, a quiet smile on my lips. "My love," I said, "I think it's time. Not to boast, but to show them that what they did couldn't break me. It made me. This isn't about revenge, it's about closure. It's about showing them the true cost of their actions." He simply smiled, his hand finding mine. "I'm always with you, Liz. Whatever you need." The stage was set. The final act was about to begin. The main hall of the Tech Innovators Summit was bathed in the glow of spotlights, hundreds of industry leaders filling every seat. The air hummed with anticipation. It was the final gala, the award ceremony, the culmination of days of networking and presentations. Michael, of all people, was called to the stage to accept some minor, almost ceremonial, award, a consolation prize, I suspected, for his diminishing influence. He strutted up there, beaming, and took the microphone, his chest puffed out. "I want to dedicate this award to my beautiful and wealthy wife, Emma," he announced, his voice booming. Then he deliberately glanced at me in the front row, a triumphant, condescending smirk on his face. "And a message to those still struggling alone, don't be too jealous, now. Some of us are just meant for this kind of life." Emma, sitting below, preened, a self-satisfied smirk on her face, soaking in the attention. My stomach twisted, a familiar knot of anger, but I kept my expression neutral. This was it. Then, the MC's voice cut through the air, clear and resonant. "And now, to speak about the future of technology, please welcome our esteemed keynote speaker, CEO Elizabeth Gray." I rose, my heart pounding a steady rhythm, but my steps were sure, my posture straight. I walked towards the stage, my gaze unwavering. The murmurs of the crowd followed me. After a brief thank you to the organizers, I began. "Before I delve into my speech, I have something I'd like to share. Life is full of surprises, and sometimes, the people we trust the most teach us the hardest lessons. But it's from those very lessons that we truly grow and find our strength. And I've been fortunate enough to find the man of my dreams, who has always stood by me and believed in me unconditionally, a true partner in every sense of the word." I paused, my eyes drifting towards the main entrance, a subtle cue. Just then, the grand double doors swung open. James, with his characteristic calm demeanor and an aura of quiet authority, walked in. He wasn't flashy, but his presence commanded instant respect. The entire room erupted in whispers, a wave of recognition washing over the attendees. Many stood, some rushing forward to greet him, a testament to his immense influence. James, however, walked directly to the stage, his eyes finding mine, and gently embraced me, a tender gesture that spoke volumes. Michael and Emma, in the audience, were frozen. Michael's face was ashen, his jaw slack, his eyes wide with disbelief. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Emma, her carefully constructed composure shattered, dropped her champagne glass. It hit the polished floor with a sharp clink, unnoticed amidst the growing buzz. They couldn't believe it. The man I'd married, the industry titan Michael had always aspired to be, the one whose name commanded respect and fear in equal measure, was standing right there, by my side. James then turned to the audience, his arm still around me, a subtle gesture of ownership and pride. "Apologies for my late arrival," he said, his voice smooth and powerful, carrying effortlessly across the hall. "I just wanted to say how incredibly proud I am of my wife, Elizabeth. She is an extraordinary woman, who built this empire from the ground up, overcoming every obstacle imaginable, with unparalleled grit and vision." Then, his gaze, sharp and cold as ice, landed directly on Michael. His smile didn't falter, but his eyes were piercing. "Michael," he said, his tone still polite, but with an undeniable edge of steel, "I hear your business ventures haven't been going so well lately? Those investments in..." He named a specific, high-profile failed project of Michael's, a multi-million-dollar venture that had spectacularly imploded, a detail only insiders would know, seemed to have gone south. "It's a shame. Such a promising start, wasn't it?" The room went silent, a collective gasp. James's words weren't just a confirmation of my status, they were a public, brutal dismantling of Michael's carefully constructed image, exposing his financial struggles, his poor judgment, and his professional failures. The air crackled with tension. Michael tried to compose himself, but his face was a mask of horror. He stammered something incoherent, his voice barely a squeak. Emma, utterly humiliated, her eyes darting nervously, tried desperately to pull him away, but he was rooted to the spot. They couldn't hide their embarrassment, their carefully crafted facade crumbling before hundreds of powerful people. I then began my keynote speech, my voice clear and strong, resonating with newfound power. I didn't mention Michael or Emma directly, but every word was a direct response to their years of cruelty, a testament to my journey. True strength isn't about how much you own, or the titles you hold, but how much you've overcome. It's about resilience. It's about authenticity. A person's value isn't in what they have, but in what they contribute and how authentically they live. It's about building something real, something that lasts, not just a gilded cage. Michael and Emma sat slumped in their chairs, their heads bowed, unable to meet anyone's gaze. Their self-importance had been replaced by utter shame. The promotion that Michael had been hoping for, the big deal he was chasing, the lucrative contracts he desperately needed to save his company, I knew they were now irrevocably out of his reach. The room buzzed with a different kind of energy now, one of respect and awe for me, and quiet disdain for them. After my speech, as a crowd of well-wishers and potential partners gathered around me, congratulating me on both my presentation and my husband, Emma managed to push her way through the throng. Her face was pale, streaked with tears, her eyes red-rimmed and desperate. "Liz, sister. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. So wrong. I didn't know Michael would turn out like this. I never imagined your life would be so amazing. We made such a mistake." She stammered, trying to grasp my arm, her voice a pathetic whine. She wasn't truly apologizing, she was lamenting her own misfortune, trying to cling to any shred of connection, any hope of salvation. She was still trying to make it about herself. I looked at Emma, my gaze steady, unwavering. There was no anger, no triumph, just a quiet, profound sense of finality. "Emma," I said, my voice calm but firm, each word a boundary. "I forgave you a long time ago. Not for you, but for myself. It was the only way I could move forward. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it certainly doesn't mean we go back to how things were. My life is different now. I've found a happiness and a peace that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, least of all to you. I don't need your validation, or your apology, to know my worth." I gently, but firmly, removed her hand from my arm. I didn't give her another chance to speak, another chance to manipulate. I simply turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, exposed and alone. Michael, standing a few feet away, was visibly crumbling. Several prominent investors and former colleagues, who had witnessed James's subtle but devastating expose, were now openly turning their backs on him, their faces etched with disdain and disappointment. The whispers about his impending bankruptcy and the divorce proceedings that would surely follow spread like wildfire. The once charming facade of his life had completely shattered. James was waiting for me at the exit, his hand reaching for mine, a silent promise of unwavering support. We walked out of the summit together, hand in hand, leaving Emma and Michael standing lost and isolated amidst the dwindling crowd, their once bright star extinguished. I didn't look back. I was finally, truly, irrevocably free. 6 months later, my life with James was a serene symphony. We were at our sprawling beach house, nestled on a quiet stretch of coastline, watching the sunrise paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. Our days were filled with meaningful work, shared laughter, and quiet moments of connection. The past, once a heavy shadow, was now just a distant memory, a faded photograph. I no longer carried any emotional baggage or resentment. I had found true peace. I balanced my demanding role as CEO with quality time for James, for myself, for the passions I'd neglected for so long. My company continued to thrive, expanding globally with James's strategic guidance and network. We launched groundbreaking new products, secured lucrative contracts, and became a dominant force in the AI sector. I wasn't just a successful CEO, I was an inspiration, a testament to resilience and self-made success. My net worth had multiplied beyond my wildest dreams, my salary was more than I could have ever imagined, and I was able to set up a substantial college fund for my nieces and nephews, Emma's children included, though I kept my distance from Emma herself. This was my true inheritance, not something given, but something earned. But my journey wasn't just about personal triumph. James and I co-founded Wings of Resilience, a nonprofit dedicated to providing legal and psychological support to women who had experienced betrayal in family or professional relationships. We partnered with lawyers to offer pro bono legal aid for divorce and custody battles, and therapists to help heal emotional wounds. I often sat in on the counseling sessions, sharing my story, not as a victim, but as a survivor, helping others find their voice, reclaim their power, and rebuild their lives. It was in giving back, in transforming my pain into a force for good, that I found the deepest meaning and fulfillment. Through Sarah, I heard snippets of news about Emma and Michael. The divorce was messy, protracted, and public. Michael's company had declared bankruptcy, leaving him with mountains of debt and a ruined reputation. He was facing multiple lawsuits, and his once promising career was in tatters. Emma, stripped of her lavish lifestyle and her parents' unwavering support, was struggling. She had to sell their mansion, downsize drastically, and was reportedly working a low-paying job, a stark contrast to the life she had once flaunted. My parents, after everything, finally seemed to grasp the depth of their mistakes. They reached out, tentatively, seeking reconciliation, expressing regret for their past favoritism. I maintained a cordial, distant relationship, but I no longer allowed their past actions or their belated apologies to define my present or future. The inheritance they had always promised Emma, the one they had believed would secure her future, now seemed like a hollow victory for her, overshadowed by the ruin she had brought upon herself. I sat on the balcony of our beach house, a warm cup of coffee in my hands, looking out at the vast, shimmering ocean. The sun was a fiery orb on the horizon, painting the sky in a symphony of colors. I smiled, a deep, genuine smile that reached my eyes. I used to think happiness meant proving my success to those who had hurt me, making them regret their choices. But now I understood. Happiness isn't about vengeance or external validation. True happiness is when you find peace within yourself, when you release all burdens of the past, and when you learn to transform pain into strength, creating something beautiful and meaningful for the world. The greatest revenge isn't seeing your enemies fall, it's living a vibrant, fulfilling, and purposeful life, unburdened by their shadows, a life where you are truly free. James walked up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist, his chin resting gently on my shoulder. We stood there, together, watching the sun climb higher, its golden rays illuminating the endless expanse of the sea. I leaned my head into his embrace, feeling the warmth, the profound peace, and the unwavering strength of his presence. Above us, a lone seagull soared freely across the clear blue sky, its wings catching the morning light, a perfect, effortless arc. It was a beautiful, powerful symbol of my own liberation, a new beginning, filled with hope, genuine love, and a future unmarred by the ghosts of the past. I was finally home, truly home, within myself and with the man who saw and cherished the real me. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it resonated with some of you out there. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ultimately led you to a stronger, better version of yourself? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more.